If you want cheap Microsoft points and game codes, check out g2a.com, links in the description below.
Hey guys, it's Melvin7 here, and today I'm bringing you my BPL predictions versus TheMrAcee. So yeah, let's just get straight into this. The scores now are 23 to me, 21 to TheMrAcee. Basically, in the last episode, he got 6 points, which means he got 4 results correct, but 1 correct score, so total 6 points, and I got 5 results correct, but none of the correct scores. So yeah, it's 23-21 at the minute. So let's get straight into this. So the first game is Burnley up against Southampton. Now obviously Southampton just got beat 2-1 by us. They put in a brilliant performance. They showed fight and desire, something they didn't against Arsenal and Man City. So for me, 3 losses on the bounce isn't really a fair reflection of their form, because they are Manchester United, Manchester City and Arsenal that they did lose to, and they were pretty unlucky with the last 2, to be honest. So against Burnley, who just lost 2-0 to QPR, you know, I think they're going to revert. They're going to get a few goals in this one. I think they're going to get some points on the board. So I'm going to predict 3-0. You know what? I'm going to say 3-0. There's a few high scorers in this week that I think is going to happen anyway. So the next one is Chelsea versus Hull. Obviously, Chelsea's unbeaten streak of 23 games ended at St James's Park, where they lost 2-1. You know, they didn't really do too much wrong. It's just Newcastle were more clinical. They hit them on the counter-attack and they scored and deserved their win, to be honest, because they did defend very, very well when they were down to 10 men. It was a good game, and to be honest, Chelsea shouldn't feel too disheartened. I mean, Matchday wasn't playing. He's back now, and I think he's a really, really key part of that team. So they're up against Hull, who, let's face it, on the best of form. They drew 0-0 with West Brom, so confidence isn't really going to be booming for them, and it's at Stamford Bridge, so Chelsea are going to really want to, you know, mark a statement back to the disbelievers who think that because of this loss they can go on a losing streak or something ridiculous like that. So for me, I think Chelsea are going to demolish, like, they're going to fucking destroy Hull, for me personally, because if Hull play like they did against Manchester United, it's going to be a walk in the park. So I'm going to say 4-0 Chelsea. That's the highest result I've ever predicted, I think, in this. And yeah, I think it will come true. Diego Costa will end his goal drought, and yeah, should be good for Chelsea fans, I suppose. So yeah, the next game is Crystal Palace versus Stoke. Now obviously Stoke are on a ridiculous high. They battered Arsenal in the first half of that game. I'm sorry to say, Arsenal fans, but obviously you'll agree. Should have been 4-0, but it wasn't, so Arsenal fought back, in fairness. But yeah, Stoke did deserve that win, and, you know, very, very good result, especially since it was at the Emirates. So they're going to have a lot of confidence going into this game. Crystal Palace did hold Spurs to a draw. There was a few chances for both sides, but it was a fairly dull occasion, to be honest. I mean, it was a feisty 0-0, but it's still a 0-0 at the end of the day. So this one, considering how temperamental Stoke are, they're very, very hard to predict what's going to happen. You know, they're going to be on a high, but it's at Palace, like Crystal Palace are at home. So for me, I'm going to say 1-0 Stoke. I think that the confidence from the Arsenal game should play a part in this, and it's going to be a very dull game in my opinion. Next game is Leicester versus Manchester City. Now, Manchester City, they've obviously just qualified from the Champions League, so that is a big, big bonus for them. You know, they're going to be filled with confidence. Obviously, Aguero got injured though against Everton, where they did lose they won 1-0. So, you know, that's a little bit of a factor, but let's face it, Leicester have been ridiculously poor. They lost 2-1 to Aston Villa, and basically that was a relegation crunch battle. So for me, Leicester are going to get walked over, even without Aguero. Like, to be honest, Aguero couldn't have been injured at a better time. I hate what the pundits are saying. This is a terrible time for Aguero to be injured because it's the Christmas period. Take a look at Manchester City's next 6 games and then tell me that it is not a good period for Sergio Aguero to be injured. The only cause for concern is if it is 8 weeks, then he misses a run of games against Everton, Arsenal and Chelsea. Fair enough, that's a hard run, but the games they've got are basically bottom 10 teams, so they shouldn't really have too much of a problem. It is Leicester who are the home side, but they've been very, very poor, so to be honest, it's another demolition job for me. 3-0 Manchester City. Next game, we've got Sunderland versus West Ham. Now, West Ham have been fantastic, to be honest. You know, been in great form. They are now 5th, I believe. No, wait, they're 4th. They just beat Swansea 3-1. Cracking game. Obviously, there was that debatable Fabianski red card, whether Sacco handballed or whatever, but it was a great game. Swansea were dominant in the first half. Then West Ham turned it around. Well, for the first 30 minutes, I would say Swansea were the dominant force, but then Andy Carroll used his magic head. I suppose that sounds ridiculously stupid and wrong on so many levels, but you know, his power headers were ridiculous in that game. 2 sensational goals, and obviously he got his inform on FIFA, so they're on a high. Whereas Sunderland, you know, they drew 0-0 with Liverpool, another boring game, probably one of the most boring this season. Sunderland, ever since they conceded 8 against Southampton, their defence has been impeccable, to be honest, for the type of side they are, like kind of a bottom half side. They do have a very strong defence, so it's going to be difficult for West Ham to break through, considering it's at the Stadium of Light. But saying that, I think West Ham will have enough quality to stay off Sunderland. I wouldn't be surprised to see Sunderland get a draw from this, but I believe like the pace of Sacco, I don't know if Valencia is injured or not, but then they've got Jarvis to come in, and then obviously the aerial capabilities of Andy Carroll. You know, I think West Ham have got enough to win, so I'm going to say 2-1 West Ham. Next game is West Brom versus Aston Villa. Now, Aston Villa just beat, I said this before, what the hell, Leicester, yes, Leicester 2-1, so confidence is going to be really high. Benteke is back, you know, they've finally started getting some points on the board, whereas West Brom, another dull game against Hull, 0-0, so they didn't really show much in that. Hull have been pretty poor, so to come out with a 0-0 draw probably isn't the best result. Berahino's on a goal drought, so you know, this one's going to be fairly interesting. For me, I think it's going to be a draw. I think it's going to be 1-1. I wouldn't be surprised to see Aston Villa go on and win this. But for me, I've just got a feeling that it's going to be a draw. So I'm going to say 1-1. Now the next game is Arsenal versus Newcastle. Complete different egos for the teams, I suppose. Apart from Arsenal just beat Galatasaray 4-1 in the Champions League. Podolski scored 2, and obviously Ramsey got his brace with a sensational goal, to be honest. 35-yard volley, but before that they got beat to Stoke at Stoke, and they got hammered for the first half, as I said, whereas Newcastle ended Chelsea's unbeaten run, so that gave them huge confidence. So this game is probably behind the next game that's going to follow, probably the biggest game this week apart from the obvious derby. So for me, it's a very interesting game, and it could go anywhere. Like, this is an unpredictable result. Arsenal, you never know, they could turn up. Newcastle could flop suddenly, or Newcastle could show the strength they did against Chelsea and get a result. So you know what? I'm going to take the safe option, and I'm going to go for a 2-2 draw. I do think both sides will be going for it. They'll both desperately want the 3 points. Newcastle will have belief now, whereas Arsenal need the points. So for me, I think it's going to end as a 2-2 draw. The next game is the biggest one potentially in Premier League history. Manchester United versus Liverpool. Now, Liverpool's confidence is probably the lowest it's been in a year and a half, whereas Manchester United's is probably the highest it's been in a year and a half. So complete contrast towards the team. We had our worst performance of the Premier League season this season against Southampton, but we scraped a 2-1 win. Liverpool, on the other hand, have just been dumped out of the Champions League for a lacklustre performance, to be honest. First 75 minutes until the red card that Markovic got handed, which was a little unfair, but until that they showed nothing. After that they showed spirit. Gerrard scored his free kick, and it looked as though they might qualify, but they did not. So now they're in the Europa League, and obviously they drew 0-0 to Sunderland. So confidence is an all-time low, but no matter what results have preceded this, both teams will be fired up. I mean, it's the biggest derby in the Premier League for me, and to be honest, most people would agree with this. It is a huge game between these two sides, so both sides are going to be up for it. But to be honest, especially since we've got players such as Raphael, Luke Shaw and Di Maria, who should all be back. Whether Di Maria will start, he'll probably be on the bench. Not sure if Falcao's going to be up to full fitness, but he should play some minutes. Personally, I would like to see Falcao start, and if he's not fit enough, bring him off at half time. You know, get him some game time, because against Southampton, unexpected circumstances, we needed to defend, so Falcao couldn't get his 20-30 minute game time. Darren Fletcher had to take that because of 2 subs in the first half. Another injury to Chris Smalling. But for me, we've got enough to see off Liverpool, and you know, you can call me biased all you want, but we'll see what happens. I might be forced to eat my words after this at the end of the week. We'll see. But I personally think we're going to do a demolition job on Liverpool. Honestly, I think 5 straight wins, you know, hopefully we can make it 6, and that'll be a record this season in the BPL. 6 in a row. Newcastle have had 5 in a row. We've had 5 in a row. Let's make it 6, and I'm going to say 3-0 Manchester United. Let's see how that pans out. The next game, Swansea versus Spurs. Swansea were very unlucky in their 3-1 defeat to West Ham. They did show a lot. They had a harsh red card, which has been, what do you call it, they made an appeal and they lost the appeal basically, so that red card stands, which is a bit unfortunate for them, whereas Spurs drew 0-0. I mean, I don't know what's up with Spurs, I really don't. Maybe tonight when I'm doing this, it's Thursday, so maybe the Europa League will fire them up. They might, even though they're already through, I don't know, they've got a European hangover anyway, so personally, I think Swansea are going to take all 3 points. You know, Swansea were very, very good against West Ham. It was a great game, great 2 sides, to be honest, that could find themselves in the Europa League next season and maybe the Champions League for West Ham, but we'll see. Let's not get ahead of ourselves with that. But anyway, Swansea, I think, are going to win, and I think it's going to be 2-1 because I think Harry Kane has got an injury, or he's not flown for Europa. I'm not sure if that's just to rest him or what the crack is with that. But yeah, Kyle Walker is back though, so maybe a little bit of a positive, but still, 2-1 Swansea for me. The next game is Everton versus QPR. Now, I do not know what's up with Everton. I know they lost 1-0 to City, not the worst result, a debatable penalty, etc. But they're on less than 20 points, and they're in the bottom half of the table. I really don't understand. Like, they've got such a good team. Yes, they've had a few injuries, but we take the hat when it comes to injuries anyway. So for that, I really don't understand. Like, this is a difficult game because QPR have shown a lot of determination recently. Harry Redknapp seems to have got a well-coordinated side there. Seems to be firing on all cylinders now. They don't really seem as though relegation is going to be much of a threat anymore. They're out of the relegation zone, and they look to be putting in some pretty decent performances. So yet again, this is going to be a tough one to call. For me, you know, I'm swinging towards an Everton victory, but because of QPR's latest form, I really think it's going to be a draw because of Charlie Austin, Leroy Fer, etc. So I'm going to say a 2-2 draw in this game. Let me know what you think of my predictions, and obviously check TheMrAcee's predictions after you've watched mine to see his. And now we're going to do the comparisons between our two and, yeah, see what the differences are, I suppose. This week, the predictions are fairly similar, to be perfectly honest. The Southampton one, same result, different score. Chelsea, same result, different score. Crystal Palace, different result. And then the Man City one, we've got the same result, different score. However, Sunderland, West Ham, the exact same score and result. West Brom versus Villa, we both said draw. Newcastle, he believes they're going to lose 3-1, whereas obviously I said they'd draw. Man United versus Liverpool, we both think it's going to be 3 goals for Manchester United, but he thinks we'll concede 1. Swansea Spurs, that's an interesting one. He said 3-3, whereas I said 2-1 Swansea. And Everton QPR, I've said Everton draw, but he said Everton wins. So, you know, we'll see how the points fare at the end of this episode. So, yeah, peace.